High Noon Rant or High Noon Report, whichever you want to call it. My name is Pugs Moran, and I do this every Monday through Friday, high noon, 12 p.m. We get together, we talk about all the things that are trending, the hot topics, the current events, headlines, whatever they're screaming on the TVs, whatever you see on the newspaper. I can't remember the last time I saw an actual newspaper. I can't even think, obviously, where was the last place I might have seen a newspaper? And I'm like, well, walking into a 7-Eleven, isn't there a newspaper bin? I don't know. I haven't noticed a newspaper bin in a 7-Eleven or a Speedway in forever. But anyway, let's get off that. Hi, folks. That's what we do. We talk about news, current events, hot topics, trends. We don't do politics. We don't do red versus blue. I don't give a shit. I don't care if you're blue or red. First of all, I think anybody who walks around and defines themselves based on that to begin with is just someone I'd rather not hang out with. But the rest of us, there's a whole bunch of us out here are just normal people. We're tired of this. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do here. So join us, won't you? Hey, thank you so much to our executive producer of this here show. Today's show is brought to you by a dude doing a bit. And who am I to get involved or get in the way of somebody who wants to do a bit if it means that, every show is going to be a couple bucks richer. Thank you to our executive producer, Peter L. Again. Peter L. is... He's got Ranger fever. That's fine. We should all have Ranger fever. Woo! Ranger fever oh man! Ranger fever is starting to move to the stomach now, isn't it? You're starting to feel like you want to vomit. Whoa! Ranger fever. Ooh! We'll talk about that. We'll get into that. Thank you to Peter L. Everybody bow down to Peter L. in the chat room. He is, of course, the man responsible for today's show, the executive producer. If you want to be executive producer for Monday's show, drop a little tip. That's how we do it. This show, like I said, this show cannot exist on regular radio with commercials where I get a paycheck and stuff like that. I can't because I refuse to be one side or the other. So here we are. So if you support this kind of talk radio, drop a little something if you would. I'll put the banner up there just so you see if you feel so inclined. Tippers get to be executive producers. Okay. All of that's out of the way. First things first. Don't know that we're going to go 2 hours plus today. Don't know that we're even going to make 2 hours, but I do promise to give you a full show. There's a lot going on. First and foremost, there was no Radio Misfits show last night, and I apologize for that. You guys know because of football, because my kid, I've got a freshman in high school, and he's playing freshman football, and they play on Thursday nights. So I go to those games, and we don't do a 9 p.m. Radio Misfits stream. Usually we do a 9 p.m. Radio Misfits stream. I mean, the goal is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but we don't kill ourselves over it. It's me, myself, and James Parker, and you good folks. You folks like to come and hang out. Let's see who's in the chat room. I want to make sure everybody in the chat room is all getting situated. We got my boy Jeff. We got April. We got Taronda, we got Bonner. Who else do we got? Oh, I got to switch it over to see more names. There we go. I am not in the proper. We got Byron. We got some Leslie C. We got some. Oh, there's Jeff again. Jeff, very active. April. Jeff is such a hater. He is. There are haters. But here's what I love about the chat room. There are people in this chat room who have probably nothing in common, yet they all get along. Mike's here. Look at Mike. And they get along to the point where, we never have problems in our chat room. And I'm so proud of that. I love my chat room. My chat room might be the best, most well-ordered chat room. And it's not like we don't talk about provocative things. We do. It's a good chat room. Now, it's also a small chat room. So, that might be part of it. That might be why. But, grow that. Look, to be honest with you, I'd love to have a fucking crazy chat room where we have to have 10 moderators. Because that means the show will be successful. As it stands, it's just the show isn't so much successful, but it is very good and very fun for me. So we're going to keep doing it. Back to the original line of thought. Again, for those of you who are new, I know there ain't nobody new. This is a stream of consciousness. This is just me for 2 hours talking with no breaks. So forgive me when I chase little rabbit holes and get off subject. But back on the subject as it was. There was no Radio Misfits show last night with myself and James Parker because of my kid's football game. So I got to give you my kid's football update, right? You may have noticed I wasn't tweeting a lot last night from the game. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's Pugs Moran. Facebook is Pugs Moran. Everything is Pugs Moran. You can find me. So I wasn't tweeting much last night. Now, a little context quickly. My son's freshman football team is very good. The games that they win, they are 6-1 heading into last night's game. They are 6-1. The games that they win by an average margin of like 30 points. I mean, they're just blowing everybody out, and it's great. Now, they do have one loss on their schedule, and that came 2 weeks ago. And that was a very weird game 2 weeks ago. It didn't look like the same team that blows people out. 2 weeks ago, my son's team suffered their first loss of the season. They lost 45-6. All right. Now that was a comeuppance. And at the time I thought, hey, this is good. This is what they need. They're walking around, they're strutting, they're undefeated. They're blowing teams out by 30 points. They think they can't be touched. Guess what? Somebody just came into their house because it was a home game. Somebody came into their house and touched them 45-6. How humiliating. How would they respond? Last week they respond. They win 38-8. All right, we're back, right? 30-point margin is back. We're good. So last night we're taking on, last night's a big game. It's a home game. We're taking on a division foe, in district foe. So we got to win these games. These are important games. This team we're playing is 4-3. However, I mean, they've been beaten by teams that we beat by 30 points. So, we're looking at them that way going into this game. Oh, is that dangerous, huh? What do they call these games? Trap games? What do they call them? So my son's team comes out. Oh, my God, they got new uniforms. Their coach has been named North Texas Coach of the Week. Yeah, or Coach of the Month. Yeah, my son's freshman coach for this team's getting noticed, at least around, those coaching circles. So this is great, man. This team is really emerging. We might be looking at a district champion. Very excited. So they start the game out last night. My son's team does what they always do. They take the opening kickoff, or they force a turnover very early on, but they score first. They score first and early. Boom, marched it right downfield. They took the opening kickoff, marched it right downfield, scored 8 points, of course, because they get the 2-point conversion, because they can't be stopped on a 2-point conversion. Remember I said that. They cannot be stopped on a 2-point conversion. So we're up. And we're good. And I'm sitting there with Uncle Emil. Y'all know Emil, formerly of the Radio Misfit Show. He's too busy. He's going to show up from time to time, but that's why he's not on the Radio Misfit Show anymore. He had some real damage to his house, and then he just never came back. So it's me, it's E, and it's my son's mother. And we're sitting there, right? And stands are kind of packed, and we're all getting into it, and we're all having a wonderful, wonderful time. We're right up there on the railing, right next to the bench. We're in the stands, but we're right next to it. We're at the railing level, right? And, the kid is walking over and he's talking to us. It's great. It's great. He's feeling supported. They're up 8-0. We are partying. Yeah, the shit hit the fan. And at halftime, it was 20-8, and we were getting rolled. We were just absolutely getting rolled. And my poor kid, this was supposed to be his first healthy game back, because he has, throughout this season, he plays center, and he has suffered offensive center. He has suffered a hand injury to his non-snapping hand, and he suffered an ankle sprain, which is probably more of a tendon thing, but we'll see. So he's been banged up. They had a bye week. He sat last week, and now this week he was back. And you're fresh, you're good. Oh man, the kid got hurt again. He got hurt late in the game. He's like hobbling around out there. My son, my 14-year-old kid, he's hobbling around. I know, I've seen the ankle. I showed you guys the pictures of the ankle. It was all, and he's hobbling around, right? And he doesn't have his ankles taped because he's a tough guy. He's like, well, I don't need ankles. He's one of these idiot lineman types. So he's hurt. Team is losing 20-8 at halftime. We're thinking, what the hell is going on? We're like, that's okay. We'll start out the second half really good. We start out the second half, it gets even worse. Now it's 28-8. We're like, fuck. And now it's getting late. Now the third quarter's over. It's 28-8. Folks, my son's team turned the ball over last night 6 times. 6 times fumbles. You know why? I'm going to tell you why, because I'm a parent who's watched every game. My son's team is a razzle-dazzle team. They got a lot of Michael Vick, Kyler Murray, Justin Fields, Lamar Jackson in them. They do a lot of that. They're elusive. And they're good at being elusive. And when you're good at being elusive, you get cocky. And they have terrible ball security. They run around. They got one guy who runs with the ball in one hand. The coach is screaming at him for it. So we turned it over a bunch of times. Bunch of fumbles. They converted on it. So remember, now we're heading into the fourth quarter, and we're like, this sucks. This is a district game that we needed to win. heading into the third quarter. It's 28-0. Guys, we came back. We came back. It's like they just flipped the switch, and they're like, all right. They go up 28-0. The fourth quarter is starting. They take the kickoff. Boom, kickoff. Dude runs it back, touchdown. Very next play, the other team, they're on offense. They throw the ball. We pick them off. Take it all the way down to 5. Boom, quickly. Now it's another touch. We got to the point where it was 28-28 with 1 minute left. We had just scored. And now we're going for the 2-point conversion. Now we're going for our 2 point. They never kick the ball. They have this crazy 2-point conversion play that works all the time. It's why all of their touchdowns are 8 points. And here we go. 1 minute for the win. We come back. We pedal all the way back in the fourth quarter from 28-8. We're tied up. And now we're going to win it with our 2-point conversion. Yeah, no, that didn't happen. For the first time ever that I've seen them fail on the 2-point conversion because they did it a little differently. So we escaped with a tie. But holy shit, you guys, it's a victory. It's a victory because we were supposed to lose that game. That team did not deserve to win that game, or they deserved a loss. And you know what? In the fourth quarter, they just knuckled down and they said, nope, we are better than this team. And they secured a tie, which is it's going to fuck them up in the playoffs. That tie is going to screw everything up, but it's not a loss. So that's good. Now, that was a story from last night. Hi, Jen. Jen's here. Who else is here? Al's checking in. Rady's here. All right. So now here's the real story from last night. That's the nuts and bolts of what happened. There you go. So now my kids' team is 6-1-1. Ugh, I hate ties, but oh my God, so happy to have, so happy to not take a loss, and also so incredibly proud of those kids for freaking. I mean, my kid didn't come out of the game. He's probably not going to play next week. I pick him up this afternoon. His ankle's messed. He's going to go see someone this afternoon. His ankle's messed. I feel bad for him, but he didn't take himself out of the game, man. He just got himself wrapped up. Finally, like, why weren't you wrapped up before the game? I didn't need it. Yeah, well, apparently you did, didn't you? You needed it. So now he's wrapped. So he's wrapped. He's playing whatever. He's stuck in there the whole game, man. He laid a dude on his ass on a big play that got the ball into the end zone after the interception. For just laid a dude, boom, chucked him, opened the hole, touchdown right up the middle. Very proud of him. He's hobbling. He's in pain. Looked like he was almost going to cry. I mean, I'm watching him on the sideline, and I'm seeing him on the trainer's table, and they're wrapping him up. And, you know your kid. My kid is an emotional wreck. I am watching my kid be an absolute emotional wreck. And now I'm standing. And remember, I told you we're standing at the railing? It's me, Uncle E, and his mama. And we're standing, and we're all sitting on the first rail at the railing. Now, the railing at this stadium is designed so that if you are in your seat on the front row, you can easily put your arms up on the railing like this, okay? So if you're seated, you can sit on the rail. So this is where the railing is when you're seated. Now, what happens in a football game that gets really exciting and people stand up? Where's the railing now? The railing is at my shins, aren't they? Yeah. And we're at the wall. Yeah. And there's a 10-foot drop onto a concrete running track right on the other side of the wall. Yeah. And we're excited, and we're high-fiving, and we're doing all of that. And just as I'm standing there and I'm watching my kid and I'm trying to lean in to get eye contact with my kid to see if he's okay, because he looks like he's an emotional wreck. Just wanted to give him a little eye contact. Staring at him, I didn't notice a kid in a giant chicken suit. Yeah, he was wearing a giant chicken costume, like a Big Bird costume. Why? Because it was like a Halloween thing going on, and half the kids were all dressed in costumes. Trying to have this emotional, connective moment with my kid who's going through something, and a giant chicken starts going, excuse me, gotta move through. So I see him coming, and I'm a good dude. I'm not like, hey, pal, go around me. No, not like that. So I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm sorry, sure. And I move like this. And in moving like this, his big stupid chicken costume pushes me. Remember where I told you where the railing was? On the front row, 10-foot drop to concrete below. Remember what I told you about that? Yeah. So I went to brace myself on the railing where I assumed the railing should be if it was a standing railing, but it wasn't there, see, because that railing would be at about hip level. The railing that it was existed was down there at the shins, because remember, when you're sitting in your seat in the front row, you can go like this, and it's really nice. But when you're standing, now it's a shin railing. So I go, oh, excuse me, to get out of the way of this guy. You guys, I came a boob hair from dying. I am not kidding you. I had to drop to my knees. That's what I did. I felt myself starting to go. And when I realized there was no railing there, I had to drop to my knees. I had like a bloody knee from having to drop to save my life. In front of my ex-wife. No, she goes, boy, the irony of you being killed by a guy in a giant chicken costume. I'm like, yeah, the irony there, baby. I know. Crazy. She's funny. She's funny. One of the reasons why I married her. God, it was scary. And all I could think, I was wrecked too, but there was like 3 minutes left in the game, and I was wrecked for the next 3 minutes because everybody else is like, yeah, and I was just shut down. For the rest of the game, I sat there, my heart's going, you know how when you have a near miss, and then you start to obsess on that near miss, and you start to really break down how fucking close you came to going over a wall 10 feet onto a concrete. Oh my God. What do I always tell you, man? I always tell you, life is fleeting. Life is absolutely fleeting, man. Whether it's a brain aneurysm, whether it's a piece of frozen shit from an airplane that's flying overhead, whether it's a guy who's checking his phone and he blows through a four-way stop, whatever it is, man, life is fleeting. And that was the greatest example that I could ever present of that. I was enraptured. We were having an amazing time. Life was at a 10, and then it almost ended because I almost just went splat. Whew. God damn. That is a mental rattler. I'm still rattled. I mean, I've been rattled. I don't even want to think about that stuff. Yikes. So there you go. There you go. That's how fleeting life is. All right, there you go. A couple of stories from last night. Now let's get into today's show. What do we do here? We do the show in 4 different quarters. First quarter, we like to go through the history of this day. We tell you a couple of things that I think are interesting that occurred on this very day in history. Then we do birthdays. We talk about people who were born. Then we do the heaven or hell. This is where we look at the people on this very day throughout history who have died, and we decide whether they're in heaven or hell. That's the fun one. I like that one. Oh, man, I am hot. Is it hot again? Or am I just did I just rattle myself up emotionally again, thinking about how easily I almost freaking died? Going from a 10, oh my God, I'm having so much fun. I am so glad we came. I'm with people who are just super fun, and we're all rooting for the same thing, and I almost died that quick. I'm a dude in a giant chicken costume. Would have made an incredible story. Like, you know what? All things being equal, if I gotta die, I would like there to be a funny story. I would like there to be a giant chicken involved. I think that might be good. At any rate. All right, so let's get into the first segment here on the show. This is what we do here. Actually, no, we don't. We do the High Noon Report. That's what it is. Let's get it started officially. This is the High Noon Report for the 20th day of October, year of our Lord, 2023. There are how many days? 200. This is the 293rd day of this here year. There are 72 remaining until New Year's Eve, so get those New Year's Eve plans started. All right, quarter one. Erstwhile on this day, or if you like, previously. On October the 20th. On this day, previously on October the 20th, 1944, liquefied natural gas leaks from storage tanks in Cleveland, Ohio, and explodes, leveling 30 blocks, killing 130 people. This was the East Cleveland gas explosion. Again, 1944. They were still working the bug at a house of the future. It's going to have liquid gas pumped right in, And again, never be generation one. Never be generation one of something. Never be. Early adopters are idiots. Early adopters are driven by ego. That's all early adopters are. Early adopters are early adopters because they want to go head it first. That's ego. That's because it's really detrimental to their bottom line. Because early adopters always get screwed. There's always glitchy. There's always nothing. You gotta be a 2.0, 3.0. You don't want to be 1.0, and you sure as shit don't want to be 1.0 in 1944 for people getting gas pumped into their homes. On this day in 1947, during the Cold War, the House Un-American Activities Committee begins investigating communist infiltration of Hollywood. It's so stupid. They just, it's just a bunch of people in Washington wanted to rub elbows with Hollywood celebrities because nobody was more influential. There was no time in history that Hollywood was more influential than in the 1950s. Didn't have 100 TV channels. There was one newspaper. People went to movies. That was it. That was their big thing. They went to the theater and they saw a movie. And those people were big. Now, what? Big. Instagram models with 1 million likes are hits. I don't know who's famous anymore. Doesn't make sense. There's no rhyme or reason to it. On this day in 1951, the Johnny Bright incident occurs during a football game between the Drake Bulldogs and the Oklahoma A&M Aggies. This was a racial incident. Johnny Bright, I know I've talked about it before. It's a racial incident. We'll move on. It's whatever. Not whatever. I mean, it was an ugly piece of, America's not too distant past. You can look it up, the Johnny Bright incident. Go ahead. On this day in 1973, the Watergate scandal, this is the anniversary of the Saturday Night Massacre. The Saturday Night Massacre was when Nixon just fired everybody that he thought was going to talk. It's just everybody. Elliot Richardson got the axe. William Ruckelshaus got the axe. I mean, just a bunch of important people in the Nixon cabinet who he was afraid were not trustworthy. He fired him. He blew him out, which is really, again, bad strategy because you want someone to turn on you, keep them close, right? If you don't want them to turn anyway. The idea was there was an associated. Again, it's the Saturday Night Massacre. You can look it up. By the way, that historically speaking, that was one of the great, shocking, purely political demonstrations from the White House in history, and it's always been held up as such until about, the last few years. We've had presidents who've been having their versions of Saturday Night Massacre. Okay, I'm lying. Trump did a Saturday Night Massacre every 6 months. I mean, so it's almost quaint now. When we look at the anniversary on this day in 1973, when the Nixon Saturday Night Massacre occurred. Do you know how many attorney generals Trump fired? Or whatever, come on. Oh, it's so cute when Nixon did it the one time. Please, history marches on. The record's been broken, basically, is what I'm trying to say here. On this day in 1977, a plane carrying the rock band Lynyrd Skynyrd crashes in the Woodlands in Mississippi. 6 people, including 3 band members, are killed. All right, sure. I'll talk about Skynyrd. Skynyrd is one of these great tent posts of me understanding the maturation progress of the human male. I grew up. If you'd asked me in 1986, what do you think of Skynyrd? I'd have been like, Skynyrd sucks, man. in the night, Skynyrd sucks. I was just not a Skynyrd guy. Skynyrd, to me, I didn't know the music. I was very similar to Pink Floyd, but Skynyrd, I put above them. Skynyrd was a band that I hated because I thought they represented sort of like a dirtbag, stupid, inbred trailer park hillbillyization of rock and roll, which I didn't like. Because, I was more of I liked the rock and roll roots with the blues community where it came from dirty and nasty. But, this whole hillbilly Southern rock thing, as a kid, as a snobby music kid, didn't appreciate it, hated it. Then I dated a girl around about 2003, 2004, who was, she was young. I mean, she was younger than me, probably about 10 years or so. But no, 2000, yeah, probably. No. Anyway, it doesn't matter. She's big old hillbilly. She was big, but she was also in law school. So that was, she was like a hillbilly who like cool, the hot hillbillies, they're good hillbillies. They're proud hillbillies. They should be. She was kind of like that. She was a rodeo queen in Oklahoma, which I always thought was really kind of interesting. A fun fact. But she got me into Skynyrd. She was really into music. She played guitar and she was really into Skynyrd. And I was like, Skynyrd. And because of her, she made me watch a documentary, and I watched a documentary on Skynyrd, and I was like, holy shit. And then I started listening to Skynyrd, and I'm like, holy shit. Skynyrd's a real band. Skinner's a real important band. Skinner's a band that was doing some really cool stuff. They were saying some really cool stuff. Man, Skynyrd isn't just stupid. Hey, what word rhymes with Freebird? No. Skynyrd was deep. Ronnie Van Zant was deep. They were writing some stuff. They were making some statements, and they were not at all what I thought they were. Skynyrd was a cool, legitimate, dare I say, even artistic, artsy rock band. Skynyrd, love them. On this day in 77, the plane went down, and they marched on, man. Johnny Van Zant, right? Then Johnny take over, and then probably still see him at a county fair. I would see Skynyrd whenever, man. Just in tribute to the band that was, and how guilty that I feel about being such a stupid snob who was ignorant and didn't know what the hell I was talking about until I actually started listening to it as a mature, open-minded grown-up. And I went, wow, okay, I can see why this moved people. I can see why my dumbass at 12 didn't get it. Anyway, Lynyrd Skynyrd, 1977 on this day. On this day in 2011, oh, here's something to celebrate, right? It's the day that Muammar Gaddafi got anally raped with a bayonet to death. And we celebrate that in these parts. It's a dark vision, so, don't conjure it. But still, it's good. It's a good little thing to know. Hey, whatever happened to that Gaddafi guy? Well, on this day, he was anally raped to death by a bunch of angry people with bayonets. Cool. It's a feel good. All right, there you go. That's it for all the events that occurred on this day. Now let's move into the birthday segment, quarter two. They say it's their birthday. Born on this day, Dr. Joyce Brothers in 1927. Dr. Joyce Brothers, she was one of the first TV doctors, kind of invented the whole TV doctor thing, although not really, but the female doctor, I think she invented that. So we're all thinking, if I grew up in the 1970s and 80s, and Dr. Joyce Brothers was always held up as, this exalted great mind of the medical world and psychology and all of that. She's a freaking game show winner. Dr. Joyce Brothers became famous because she won a game show. Not because she solved some, confounding human elemental problem with, psychology. No, she didn't do anything like that. She won the $64,000 question back in 1943, and she looked kind of hot doing it. So they started putting her on game shows. And then she got her doctorate. She became Dr. Joyce Brothers, and now she's Dr. Joyce Brothers on game shows. And you know what? She's kind of okay. People kind of liked her. See, this is what I say about Hollywood back then. They had nothing but job openings. The celebrity field had nothing but job openings in 1950. If you were standing near a camera and you looked okay, there was a good chance you were given a late night talk show. That was it. And that's who Dr. Joyce Brothers is. And it's funny. She would go on to use her fame as a game show panelist. Game shows were big in the 50s and 60s and even into the 70s. In the 70s, they got a bit downgraded as daytime stuff. But game shows were primetime fare for a long time. And she was a big part of the whole game show movement. And then she became a doctor, and it was like, hey, maybe we can do something. Hey, you got any advice for anything? And then she would just go, yeah, okay. And then she put a book out, and now suddenly she's an author, and now she's got another book, and now she's another author, and now she's making all these money, and she's on Johnny Carson, and oh my God, she must be the greatest psychological mind of our era. She won a game show. That's what it is. I always used to, this idea of people, look, I say this partly tongue in cheek. She got a break because she won a game show. That's how she got noticed, okay? But she got to stick around, right? She was around. She had a career. She obviously had to do something. I know how hard it is to write books. She wrote a lot of books, whatever. So I begrudge her nothing. But I am just pointing out that it was truly happenstance back then. The people... Remember when American Idol first started and all your idiot musics? Now, I used to say this all the time. All your idiot music friends would be like, that's just, I don't think a contest winner is going to be a rock star. I don't think I'm interested in somebody that wins a contest to get famous. And I'm like, really? Okay. So I guess Frank Sinatra didn't exist because Frank Sinatra won a contest. Frank Sinatra won some Harry James radio sing-off contest to get. Now, that's how he got noticed. Frank Sinatra won a radio contest. And in winning that contest, the guy, Harry James, who was a band leader, went, Look what we found. Look at this time. Happens all the time. So don't downgrade any American Idol winners. And certainly, or if you're going to downgrade them, just be like, hey, Dr. Joyce Brothers and Frank Sinatra were both contest winners. So was Elvis. But Elvis's origin story and how he broke had more to do with Sam Phillips. But Elvis was also a contest winner that, there you go. That's all they had were like contests back then. That's it, because there was no established, there wasn't a whole bunch of established acts. They had contests to find the new people. That's what they did. On this day in 1927, Dr. Joyce Brothers is born. On this day in 1931, Mickey Mantle is born. The Mick played every game wasted. The dude was a chronic alcoholic. The dude was drunk his entire career. Didn't take care of himself. He was out carousing in bars, shit-faced at like 4:30 a.m. every night. Played a lot of 1 o'clock games back then, so you do the math. Mickey Mantle, an absolute disaster of an alcoholic. And probably in the top 5 greatest baseball players of all time. I mean, his records are still there. Mickey Mantle, what Mickey Mantle meant to that team and what So here's my point about Mickey Mantle. Fucking imagine if he tried. Imagine if Mickey Mantle was born instead of Mike Trout. Okay, imagine if Mickey Mantle had come up in that era instead of, when he did, where it was all right to be drunk, while you're sitting in the dugout, smoking a cigarette, cracking beers, doing shots back in the clubhouse. Totally acceptable. Imagine if Mickey Mantle, born on this day in 1931, was born in 1991 instead of not. Jesus, I think we might be looking at the most amazing baseball player of all time. He didn't even try. Born on this day in 1931. Born on this day in 1935, Jerry Orbach. People, Jerry Orbach from Gung Gung, Law and Order. Everybody knows, right? When you go Gung Gung, that's Law and Order. Jerry Orbach's from Law and Order. Jerry Orbach's the guy. When I think of Law and Order, when I think of classic Law and Order, I think of Jerry Orbach. Now, here's what's funny is I was I said I shouldn't be an early adopter. I was an early adopter to Law and Order. I watched the first season of Law and Order. And the first season of Law and Order featured Paul Sorvino, the actor, Big Paulie from Goodfellas. Or was it Goodfellas? No. Paul from all the gangster movies. Mira Sorvino's dad. Paul Sorvino was the original guy in Law and Order. And then Paul Sorvino's show kind of became a hit. And Paul Sorvino's like, hey, I'm kind of a big movie star. I want to renegotiate my contract. And they said, no. And Paul Sorvino was like, well, fine, your show's going to tank without Paul Sorvino. Enter Jerry Orbach, who held that shit down for the next 20 years or so. Jerry Orbach, born on this day in 1935. Born on this day in 1950. How about Tom Petty? Tom Petty celebrating a birthday today. Tom Petty died 2017. I remember where I was. I remember exactly where I was when I heard Tom Petty died because it was so shocking and so unexpected. I was at the corner of 167th Street and Oak Park Avenue. I was sitting at a light at that corner, and it came over the radio. Getting some sad news today out of California. Tom Petty has died this afternoon. And I'm like, wait, what? Tom Petty? He's like 35, right? Because Tom Petty to me is always, the guy from, whoa, he's that guy. But no, he was older. Dropped dead, heart attack. That's what I'm talking about. Tom Petty probably had a whole bunch of plans for later that evening. Drops dead, heart attack. That's how fleeting life is. I'm not a doomsayer. I'm not being dark. I'm trying to drive home that it's important for you to take the next opportunity to smile, love, hope, laugh, whatever. Because you're going to be dead in the next breath. Okay, maybe not really, but it's a possibility. Just a different way to live, folks. That's all. Maybe if you suffer from depression like I do, this is a way that works. Maybe if you don't, it's a bit of an irritant, but trust me, it's a good way to live. Born on this day in 1950, Tom Petty. Born on this day in 1958, a guy my friend calls Vito Morgenstern, it's Viggo Mortensen. That's right. I have a friend who calls Viggo Mortensen Vito Morgenstern, and I don't think he's doing a bit. I think it's just born on this day in 1964. Oh, where's she? Happy birthday, Vice President Kamala Harris. I ain't seen her. Is she still vice president? What is she? Why are they keeping her? I mean, I get it. It's an election year and you don't want to dangle the younger, more vibrant option in front of the Democratic Party when you're trying to get, the Crypt Keeper reelected. I get it. Hey, maybe we shouldn't be reminding her. And, also you might want to get Gavin Newsom to sit the hell down. But no. Anyway, happy birthday, Kamala Harris. She's next in line to the throne, and we ain't really seen her in the better part of a year. Born on this day in 1971. Here's a real one. Snoop Diggity Dog, 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 dog. Snoop Dogg. Born on this day in 1971. Born on this day in 1979. How about, okay, so here's I tell you, I always say Hollywood's always got another one. Hollywood's always got another one. Hollywood's always got one in the chamber. They know what America likes, and they create them, and they look for them. Let's talk about Jimmy Stewart for a minute. Jimmy Stewart wasn't born on this day. Certainly not in 1979. But let's talk about Jimmy Stewart. Jimmy Stewart was a type. Jimmy Stewart was a type that America fell in love with. Oh, my God. He's the boy. He could be the boy next door. He could be the romantic lead. He could be the guy that you wanted your daughter to marry. He could be the guy that runs the business. He could be the hero. He could be the tough guy. He could do it all. Jimmy Stewart did do it all. And through all of that, Americans loved him. Hollywood said, that's a type. That's a type that we need to replicate. That's a type that we need. And then, of course, because there were competing production companies, for every Paramount, there's an MGM or a Universal, whatever. And all those different companies, because this was the studio era where actors worked for studios. So all those other companies went out and they said, we need one of them Jimmy Stewart types. So that's sort of the origin, or at least for the purposes of explaining this theory of mine about how Hollywood is operating a clone factory for the last 100 years. So what they do is they look for it. So you got Jimmy Stewart. Jimmy Stewart led to Jack Lemmon. Yeah, Jimmy Stewart led to Jack Lemmon. Jack Lemmon was the same as a Jimmy Stewart type. Not quite as effective and maybe not quite as A-plus level, but certainly Jack Lemmon is a legend in his own right, and he was brought in. And there's a bunch of other people that you can mention who were lessers, but the true heir apparent to Jimmy Stewart in Hollywood is, of course, Tom Hanks. They went and made a Tom Hanks. And now Tom Hanks has been holding it down for the last 30 years. Yes, there are a whole bunch of people in between Jimmy Stewart and Tom Hanks that I can mention, but these really are the two. Jimmy Stewart is Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks is Jimmy Stewart. You could interchange them. If you took Tom Hanks out of this era and dropped him there, you would be the same, If you put Tom Hanks in Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, do you think anybody would complain? If you put Jimmy Stewart in Saving Private Ryan, do you think anybody would? No, it's the same thing. So I believe that Hollywood has decided a few years ago that Tom Hanks is now getting a little bit long in the tooth, and we need to create the next Jimmy Stewart to Tom Hanks to boom. There's a whole bunch of qualified candidates too. I mean, we could take a look at Paul Rudd. We could take a look at Ryan Reynolds. I think both of those guys are a little bit too traditionally pretty to be in the Jimmy Stewart, Tom Hanks category, but not this guy. You want to know who the heir apparent filmed them? And I don't even know if this is going to be a thing, because I don't know if films are a thing anyway anymore the way they used to. But it goes to our birthday boy today, Jimmy Stewart, to Tom Hanks, to John Krasinski. That's right. Jim from The Office. I am telling, give him splash. Give him. What was in our Tom Hanks movie that made him a big star? Give him splash. Give John Krasinski Sleepless in Seattle. Give John Krasinski, You've Got Mail. Give John Krasinski Philadelphia, and let's see where that goes. Happy birthday, John Krasinski, Jim from The Office. I love him, and everybody loves him. Nobody takes a look at John Krasinski and goes, I don't want to see a movie with that guy. That's the exact same reaction that America had to Tom Hanks and Jimmy Stewart. Boom! All right, those are your birthdays. Now let's get into our fun stuff. Heaven or hell? We take people who have died on this day in history and we look at their life's resume and we decide, what do you think? First of all, let's get out of the chutes with an automatic in hell, because we've got a rule. We used to F's around with purgatory. I didn't do that anymore. Now we're just sending all politicians to hell, sight unseen. It doesn't matter. You're a politician. You can't be trusted until further notice. Dead on this day in 1964, former United States President Herbert Hoover. Boyd away. Wait, didn't he get name checked in the All in the Family? Boyd away. Glenn Miller played. Slugs that make the hit parade. Boys like us, we got it made. Those were the days. And you knew who you were then. Boys were boys and men were men. There it is. There's the name check. Seems that we could use a man like Herbert Hoover again. Nope. Herbert Hoover's going straight to hell. Dead on this day in 1977. We name checked him earlier, preemptively going to hell because I misjudged him and he's really a cool guy. Ladies and gentlemen, the death of Ronnie Van Zant occurred on this day. Ronnie Van Zant, lead singer, formative member, head of Lynyrd Skynyrd. Just an all-around cool-ass dude, man. Just a cool guy. Dead on this day in 1994. And I really don't know whether this guy deserves to be in heaven or hell. I have really no information to go on off this dude other than what I just peripherally know. I know his name. I know he's an actor. I can't think of any one movie in particular where he stands out other than one that he did at the very end of his career that was kind of a novelty movie. He made that movie with, who did he make that movie with? Michael Douglas. Kirk Douglas. That's right. It was Kirk Douglas and our guy who died today, Burt Lancaster. I don't know anything about Burt Lancaster. I know that there's a really funny Burt Lancaster, Kirk Douglas story. Like Burt, first of all, here's what I know about Burt Lancaster. Can't name a movie. Don't know what he and then did he get in any trouble or whatever. I know that Burt Lancaster is one of those names, you know, that a certain generation associates with being a big star. Look at you, a regular Burt Lancaster. You know, it's like that. Not so much to our generation, but there was a time when Burt Lancaster was bleh. And here we are in 2023, and I honestly can't name one damn Burt Lancaster movie. But I know he was big. And so for that reason, my own ignorance shouldn't dictate me saying, he's not that big, because I hate when people do that. I hate when people refuse to acknowledge their own ignorance. And because it's not something that they're familiar with, that it just can't be. I mean, that's a real problem. That's part of the asshole class. That's not being able to admit that maybe you don't understand this, and that maybe somebody else does. So I'm going to just go ahead and say, I'm going to say Burt Lancaster is a treasure and people like him. And all I have to go on, look, here's Burt Lancaster. Here's why you're going to heaven. My grandma liked you. Oh, Burt Lancaster. My grandma loved Burt Lancaster. He was her favorite actor. You know, now that I think about it, I might be the only person in the world who knows that Burt Lancaster was my grandma's favorite actor, because I'm probably the only person who ever laid on a couch and watched a movie with her at 6 years old. You know, I mean, that's something grandmas do. That's not something you do with your mom unless you're an infant, you know? Grandma liked Burt Lancaster. So I'm putting him in heaven. There you go. Make me another martini. A Burt Lancaster movie's coming on. No, my grandma wasn't Jewish. But that's kind of it. Learned how to make a martini. She liked her martini. She liked her martinis frozen. Like, I never got that. Make me another martini and take the one out of the freezer. And I would take the one out of the freezer and I would bring it to her. And then I go make her another martini. And you know what my grandma's martinis were? Gin. That's it. It was just gin in a martini glass. That's all it was. I'm like, this isn't a cocktail. I'm 5 years old. I'm like, this isn't a cocktail. This is just, Grandma, you want it straight from the bottle? You know, and she'd be like, that would be classless. No, so she's sitting there sipping straight gin, watching Burt Lancaster. She was awesome. Grandparents are awesome. Anyway, let's move on. Burt Lancaster, he's going to heaven because of my grandma. 1994. How about this one? We're going to preemptively put this dude in hell. This guy's a character, and this is one of the reasons why you probably want to go to hell, because it seems like all the truly interesting people are down there. Bob Guccione died on this day in 2010. You guys know who Bob Guccione is? Bob Guccione is the founder of Penthouse Magazine. Bob Guccione is one of the legendary creeps oh my God. I mean, here's the thing. You couldn't Me Too Bob Guccione, because Bob Guccione is like, why don't you come over to my house and let me rape you? And then it's like, no, I'm not going to let you rape me. Don't you? I mean, he had that. He just did stuff. Like, he just did crazy shit. He ran Penthouse magazine like his own. He had a crazy lifelong or career-long obsession with Hugh Hefner. So everything, the perception of how Hugh Hefner lived, Bob Guccione tried to take that and sort of build on it. Bob was different between Bob Guccione. He looked at Playboy magazine. And by the way, Penthouse was formed in London. That's a London magazine. It was supposed to be the British equivalent to Playboy magazine. Bob Guccione started Penthouse magazine, and he's like, how do I stand out from Playboy? Because it was very early. Playboy had probably been around for a few years, but they were fairly dominant in the men's magazine market. And Bob Guccione was like, show Bush. And that's what they did. They just showed Bush. And then Larry Flint comes along, and Larry Flint's like, what can I do that's different? And he was like, spread them. So Larry Flint did the spreading. Bob Guccione did the Bush. And then Hugh had topless girls. And then all bets were off. Then it was all crazy. Everybody's showing Bush. It's crazy. But Hustler was certainly the worst. But Bob Guccione was a bad guy, is my point. Bob Guccione's a bad guy. There is a series, a television docuseries, one of these, like, the behind, whatever. It's like a 5 or 6 part docuseries called The Secrets of the Penthouse. And it's all about the origin story of Penthouse magazine and the life of Bob Guccione. And it features everybody in his life that's still alive, all of his children, and they hate him. They all hate his guts, and they are all willing to tell whatever horrible story about their dad that they want. So I would suggest that Tales from or Secrets of the Penthouse or something like that. Bob Guccione is absolutely in hell dead on this day in 2010. But he throws parties, man, with Bush. On this day in 2011, the world lost a great man, Muammar Gaddafi. I'm kidding, of course. Gaddafi got anally raped to death by a bunch of angry people with bayonets. That occurred on this day. That might sound like heaven for us, but it is most decidedly hell for Muammar Gaddafi. All right, there you go. That's it. 1, 2, 3 quarters. We did the erstwhile on this day, things that occurred on this very date throughout history. We celebrated some birthdays of people who've made contributions, and we've decided the fate of any number of people who passed away on this day. So now, without further ado, what do you say we move into the part of the show where, we sort of make the bread. The bread is buttered, if you will. But first, I will remind you that bread is buttered by your kindnesses and your tips. So if you want to help support this kind of non-political, free-form talk radio the way it used to be before a bunch of dudes started showing up in suits. A bunch of dudes doing AM radio wearing suits. You're doing suits to do radio? That's the other problem. Well, there's a video aspect of it. No, man, I love spoken word. I hate that you people can see me. I wish you had to just listen. I wish you could just listen and just imagine. I put great effort in my theater of the mind storytelling, where I try to describe every little laugh. I have taken college courses in storytelling. Yeah, that's right. That's what happens when you go to a crazy liberal arts school. Whatever. So help out the show if you can. Hold on. I'm sorry. I'm distracted because I've got the news on, and there's breaking news in one of the stories that we're going to be talking about. So I apologize for being a little bit distracted. Okay, let's move in. These are the big stories of today. Let's talk about all the things that are happening on this day, all the things that are making news. Israel. That's the big story, and it's probably going to be for the foreseeable future. Let's run down some of the things that are happening in Israel, shall we? Let's see what. Didn't pull up my little rundown of notes here quick enough. That's embarrassing. Let's see here. Biden talked last night about Israel. It came on TV. If you were watching Fox News, you heard Brit Hume. If you were watching Fox News last night, you heard Brit Hume call it one of the great speeches in presidential history and certainly Biden's greatest moment from the Oval Office. And then after a commercial break, you heard Sean Hannity call it the worst speech a president has ever given. So I don't know, whatever you want to think of it. I didn't watch it. You know why? I don't care. It's all performative. It's an election year. I didn't watch it. I was at a football game. Almost dying. Remember that? I told you about that. Let's see here. What else do we got? There are some concerns now. Israel's now looking for a little bit of money. They need some money because their Iron Dome situation there, that's that really cool defense apparatus that they have that shoots out all the incoming Gaza rockets. The Iron Dome is, it's been running a little hot. And they need some more of the Iron Domes. I don't know what that means, but there's a conversation about more money. However, here's the problem. They ain't going to get it because I don't know if you've been noticing what's happening in our House of Representatives, but we don't really have one at the moment. So, yeah, there ain't going to be any checks written. So no matter how much people in this country want to be like, we've got to defend Israel at all costs, it ain't going to happen. Ain't going to happen. And the irony is, it's the people who are most invested and most vocal about the unwavering support for Israel. It's those people who are primarily responsible for the nonsense that's happening right now. I mean, don't get me wrong. Israel, this is a fact. This is not a political statement. Israel has bought and paid both the Republican and the Democratic Party. But anybody who's in power, anybody who's got any influence or swag in either party for 50 years, possibly even going back longer, have been bought and paid for by Israeli interests. So both at home here in America and abroad. I mean, whether it's, American Israeli groups or PACs or whatever, it's a big deal. So we are, without a doubt, don't get it in your head, no matter what you're hearing on college campuses, we are, as a country, at least legislatively and governmentally, 100% backing Israel. Both sides. It's probably the only thing that unifies us. And then you got your Talibs, though. You know what I mean? You got that. And then, of course, you got like your Paul, like the Pauls are like, we don't believe we should stick with anybody. There are exceptions, but we're talking rank and file for the most part. So please don't split hairs with me. I mean, you know how I feel about this? I believe that Hamas needs to be eradicated. And I believe that they need to be eradicated specifically for the actions they took 2 weeks ago on Saturday. This is not about any historical debate over who owns or who has rights to the land. That's not what we're talking about. Because Friday, before the invasion on Saturday, was pretty calm, and the world was the world. And yeah, there were troubles over there, and nobody really thought it was a settled situation, but what a big problem. And then Saturday happened. So Hamas, you're the one responsible for everything changing on Saturday. So right now, our response, because we're going to stay on point, our response is to turn you to glass, to wipe you off the face of the earth. That's how I feel. Now, I also know that there is a response. There is a chorus on both sides. First of all, there's a contrarian element to our political system where clicks or whatever, if you're different, if you say something that's shocking, they'll suddenly you'll get all kinds of promotion and maybe they get booked on Fox News or Newsmax or CNN or MSNBC. I don't know, whatever it is, but there's that to it. There isn't a whole bunch of Rashida Tlaibs, okay? There's not a whole bunch of these people, so just don't worry about that. We are pro-Israel as a government. As a people, that's a different story. We're all over the place. You see this stuff flaring up. It's like, well, but the Israelis have been barbarians. Okay, yes, again, but these are all conversations that should have occurred before 2 Saturdays ago. We didn't have them, though, did we? Put it on the back burner, kicked it down the road, didn't we? Yeah, we did. And now we got the flare-up. So now we got to deal with the flare-up. So stop talking about historical issues and all of that. Yeah, it's going to be really bad for the people of Gaza. That sucks. And if you remember, when this thing first started, my very first thing was, okay, we're going to turn that place into we're into Gaza. And I say we because I consider the Israelis to essentially be an extension of us. Because again, remember going back, both red and blue bought and paid for at least 50 years. So they're going to go in there. And I said on the very first day, here's where this is going to go off the rails. Because we all agree that Hamas needs to pay, but it's going to go off the rails when the humanitarian crisis begins. It's been 2 weeks. Israel has been prepared, as best as I can tell, since last Thursday, since a week ago yesterday. Israel has been prepared for their ground invasion. 300,000 IDF troops are assembled on the border. It's been a week now. They've been sitting there. So they're obviously waiting on something. But that's the next thing that we're waiting on. We're waiting on the big ground incursion. What else do we need to mention about and it's going to be a humanitarian disaster, and we're going to have to deal with that, but we've dealt with humanitarian disasters before, and we all clutch our pearls, and we go, isn't the world a terrible place? Thoughts and prayers, and then we move on. Sorry, we move on. But this time, after we move on from that, you know what? Maybe there'll be no such thing as Hamas anymore. So no matter how awful it was, at least we've got that feather in my... That's how I'm looking at this. Hamas needs to go. Somebody else will just pop up. We'll deal with that when we get there. The people who put guns on flying bicycles and landed at a peace and love rave party and began slaughtering people have to go. Sorry, they have to go. And war is hell. And it's been a week now, and they've told people to leave. But where do you go? Anywhere the bombs aren't falling. But that's such an inconvenience for these people. Yeah, it is awful. It is absolutely awful. Did you think war was nice? Did you think war was fun? I mean, we have such difficulty. This is a problem that I have with a lot of people. And I don't know if this pertains to any political ideology or not, but this is a problem. There are two kinds of people in this world. There are people who exist and pretend and talk and behave as if the world is this utopian thing we should all be striving for. That's the world that these people live in. And then there's the other half that believes that the world is what the world is. They look at the obstruction in front of them and they try and either get over it or around the obstruction, as opposed to the other people who just pretend the obstruction isn't real and they just go about their... That's two people. People who argue about stuff with you based upon the world they want to live in versus people who argue with you based upon the world that is. I don't know which side is better. One is certainly aspirational. The other is a little bit more no bullshit. But the world that I am living in currently needs to be absent Hamas. All right, and there you go. Now we're done. There you go. Thank you. There's my Israeli rant for the day. Let's see here. Here's a fun little story for us if we're Americans who like to travel abroad. Don't, because we're in another one of them stages. I experienced one of these stages. I traveled internationally the last time they did this. The United States State Department has issued a rare worldwide caution alert to all American citizens traveling abroad, urging any American who is overseas to exercise increased caution due to increased tensions in various locations around the world. The United States said there is also an increased potential for terrorist attacks, demonstrations, or violent actions against United States citizens. The U.S. Embassy in Beirut also urged American citizens Thursday to make plans to get out. Hey, you might want to make plans to get the hell out of here. The U.S. Embassy in Beirut also urged American citizens Thursday to make plans to leave the country as soon as possible, while commercial options are still available. Because, see, they're anticipating. They're like, we're going to have to do a military airlift. A lot of these people are going to be like, James, this is going to be nothing. We'll just wait it out. And then it's like they're standing on a runway trying to get in the back of an overloaded bomber because their house is on fire and the bombs are falling. Because there was nothing. They were just going to wait it out. That's what they're saying. Look, if you're in Beirut and you're an American, get the fuck out. Just buy a plane ticket and get out. Because you know what? Next week, we're probably going to be sacrificing some of you because you're not all going to fit on the last U.S. military plane out of Beirut. So get out. Now, this is interesting that when the State Department does this, they haven't done it often. Like they say, worldwide caution is an extremely rare issuance. But my partner Kelly and I, we traveled to Iceland the last time that they issued one of these. Now, I know you're thinking, well, you're really quite the danger boy, aren't you? Iceland, the hotbed of dissidents and terrorism. Well, here's the problem with Iceland. This is why Iceland did have kind of you had to be careful. Iceland is where a lot of European sketchy ass gangsters and stuff lay low. So you can go to Iceland. Like if you're hanging out in bars in Reykjavik and you notice a lot of dudes like, Russian or Eastern European accent. It's a very Russian gangster kind of place. So basically what I'm saying is it's not entirely safe and it is kind of rough. So when we went to Iceland, I remember the tour group that took us, and it was a busload of just American DJs, like the worst busload. Maybe rodeo clowns, maybe a busload of rodeo clowns, or maybe like, you know, pedophiles might be worse. But we were just a bunch of radio. Hey man, everybody's got a funny crack line for everything because everyone's trying to be funnier than the next guy. Oh, it was so absurd. You ever been on a bus and you know there's a funny guy on the bus who's always got something to say? You know that guy? Yeah, imagine if there's like 80 of those guys on the bus and they're all got egos the size of Buicks, so they're trying to out-funny the next guy. It was terrible. So anyway, we're on this bus with all these DJs. And the tour guide, who was this Icelandic dude, can't do the Icelandic accent. I mean, I can do it as a girl. I can do the accent of Birgit, who was a girl I hooked up with in Iceland. I can do, because her accent was so cute. And it wasn't like, all the girls there don't sound like Birgit, or not Birgit. Birgit's my friend. Don't sound like the chick from the Sugar Cubes. What's her name? Bjork. They don't also, but she did. She kind of did. And anyway, let's move on. So we're there. We're on the bus with all the DJs, and the person from the touring company comes on and starts explaining to us, look, now you're all Americans, and I know you guys think you're hot shit, but you know, all it takes is a drunk 19-year-old from a foreign country who hates Americans to break your jaw while you're crossing the street because you got that big USA flag on your backpack. So that was one of the things they told us. They said, do you have any flags of the United States on you anywhere? And people were like, no. And then she showed how forgetful we are as Americans. There was like 4 people on the bus who were wearing jackets that just as a part of their emblem for whatever brand of jacket it is, has some sort of American flag kind of logo. People who were wearing Reeboks, because there's a British flag on that, were told to take their Reeboks off and not wear them. These were the kinds of things. These are the things they tell you when these worldwide cautions go down. And here was the most disappointing thing, right? And we all had to say this. We weren't allowed to freeball it, right? When they said that if someone asks you what country you're from, do not say you're a citizen of the United States. You do not say you're from America. Do not ever say that. They made us say that we were from Canada. And I was like, ugh. They're like, everybody's got to say Canada. And I'm like, I can do an Irish accent. Nobody wants to kill the Irish. Like, I wanted to be a guy from Ireland if we found ourselves in now Canada. And the reason was the whole group needed to stay together. That if something occurred and everybody was broken up, it needed to be the people from Canada. And what if you are knocked out and laying in the street? And you've been going around telling people you're from Ireland. You're not going to be accounted for with the group of people, the tourists from Canada. So that was the thing. We had to pretend like we were from Canada because apparently just being an American in a bar might make somebody go, fuck you. You know what I mean? That sucks. That sucks to be that guy. We had no problems because, again, it was Iceland. And, you know, I spent that night with Mickey of the Mickey Amelia show in Baltimore. Mickey and I broke away from the rest of the group because we wanted to just go to a place that was a little bit quieter. And we had met this guy who was nice. He was one of our escorts, guys showing us around Iceland. And he took us to a brothel, which we didn't know was a brothel when we went there. We thought it was just a quiet bar. And we go to this quiet bar and we're sitting at the bar. And it turns out this quiet bar was a bar that was just like full of Russian gangsters, like guys from Russia who were it's a very John Wick kind of vibe. It was like we walked into the Continental. Except it was a dive bar. It was like the dive bar version of the Continental. We spent all night partying with these people. They were so fun. And then it turns out it was a brothel. So now when I tell the story, I get to say, let me tell you about the time I spent the evening in an Icelandic brothel with a bunch of Russian mobsters. Oh yeah, I got stories. Didn't partake or anything because it was weird. We were both shows that were on at the same time. Pugs and Kelly in Dallas were on at the same time as Mickey and Amelia, so we were kind of on the same schedule. Oh no, they were mornings, but they were doing something. Yeah, they were doing something different. Anyway, I thought we were on the same schedule, but we didn't, because of the time difference. Like I think our show started at like 5 a.m. Icelandic time, so we weren't, taking full advantage of all of the stuff. But man, I was drunk. I was drunk that day, and Kelly was so mad at me. I was terrible on the show that day. We're doing the show, and I had blown off. both Mickey and I had blown off some tour. Like Kelly was mad at me in Iceland because they put together these tours where you get on a bus and you got to drive around like a mountainside for 5 hours. And I'm like, that sounds awful. I don't want to do that. I'm in Iceland. You know what I want to do? I want to go down to the bar here at this International Icelandic bar and just talk to people. I'm going to learn more about Iceland just hanging out and meeting people than sitting on a bus driving around the rim of a volcano. I don't need that. And I didn't go. And the problem is that everybody was supposed to be on the bus at like 8 o'clock in the morning and I never showed up. And Kelly was sitting there and the seat next to her was empty because I wasn't going. I wasn't getting out of bed. And apparently Kelly felt like the tour person was mad at her because I didn't show up. But in reality, let's be honest, Kelly didn't want to be there either. And she was angry that I had the nerve to just go, I ain't going on this stupid tour. And she had to. That's what it's really about. She didn't care. We wouldn't have spent the whole time talking to each other. Wait, Kelly and I barely spoke when we weren't on the air together. We spent 4 hours talking about everything. You know, when you're done, you're looking for somebody else to hang out with for a little bit. It's not an indication of a lack of love or appreciation. It's just the way it is in these kinds of things. So I didn't go. So she was mad. And that's the show where, so she was dating, you remember when she was dating Tyson Walter? I don't know if you guys remember this. Tyson Walter used to play for the Dallas Cowboys, offensive tackle, center guard. He was everything. He went from the Cowboys to the Packers, and now he runs a bank in Ohio or something. Anyway, she had bitched to him about me not showing up for this thing. So the show's getting ready to start, and she's on the phone. She's talking to Tyson, and Tyson and I were friends. We were buddies. We hung out and drank, would run around before they got serious. Then they got serious, and it became those two. But she hands me the phone. She goes, "It's Tyson." And I go, "Hey, what's up?" And he's like, "You're a real asshole, man." Like, he gave me a total dressing down. And I just took the phone and I handed it back to Kelly. And I'm like, "What the fuck?" And then we're in theme, right? And it's weird between her and I because she's mad and her boyfriend just yelled at me and I'm hungover and we're in Iceland. And now I got to talk to a Shannon Elizabeth for an hour about poker. Remember her, Shannon Elizabeth from American Pie movies? She's like a professional poker player or something. I don't know. Kelly and her became friends. Me and her didn't become friends. I didn't really like her so much. That's my story about being forced to live under the State Department's worldwide caution for American citizens. Yeah, I've experienced it. Judge got murdered. This is the story I was distracted by. A judge got murdered in Baltimore, somewhere in Maryland. Boy, oh boy. Let's take a look at this, shall we? Suspect in fatal shooting of Washington County judge was in court on Thursday. So here's what happened. So this judge does his day of judging, shows up back at the old house, and some dude kills him in his driveway. Boom, boom, boom. He's dead. Turns out the guy they're looking for that shot him and killed him in his driveway was a dude that the judge had just heard the case of earlier that day. Now, what could get a man to shoot a judge dead in his driveway? Well, the judge gave unconditional sole custody to his wife. 3 kids. This is just like this is one of those situations where, it's an absolute tragedy and, you feel bad for this judge, but I understand it. I completely understand how somebody of slight mental character could snap upon being presented with the news that your children are essentially no longer your children. I understand how a weak-minded individual could be driven to do what he did. Saying it that way is certainly not a justification of it, and it's not an excuse. But man, I get it. You're talking about a man's kids. That's dicey shit, man. Judges who preside over custody and all of these things. See, I'm just going to say this. We're going to move on because this is an ugly story, and it happens to be a story that I know a lot about. Not this particular specifics of this judge being killed, but the whole idea of child custody and all that. I think that my personal situation with custody with my kid, I think it's a blessing, and I never say things like that, but the word fits. You understand what I'm trying to say when I say I think it's a blessing that my son's mother and I, who were married, can sit and watch his game together and high five and fist bump and laugh and make fun of each other. That's good. Not everybody has that. I get that. A lot of people can't allow themselves to have that because that bitch hurt me, and you can't get over it, and so now your kid is living up in a house where, his bio dad hates his mom. You can't fucking have that, okay? Just be better. I mean, it's ugly. Divorces are ugly. I mean, there should be, there's not. There's not, because we love the kid and it's all about the kid and, all of that kind of stuff. And no matter what, you don't hate each other, because there was a point in your life you didn't marry a monster. I mean, some people marry monsters, but for the most part, you didn't marry a monster. You married somebody who, at their base quality, you were like, you know what? I like this person. So when it's all over and, you should still be able to have some kind of, common ground. And we do. And I'm very proud of that. And I'm happy. And because of that, his mother and I have throughout the years been able to not get dragged in and out of court over things. You know what I mean? We've never hired a lawyer, nothing. It's been, the kid's 14 years old. It's, hey, do you mind if you don't get him this weekend, because we've got something we want to do? And then I go, oh, well, that actually sounds better than something I would do. So yeah, of course, you got to be fluid. And then it's the same thing with her. You got to work with each other. You just... But there are a lot of cases where that's not the situation. And in those situations, when they do end up in court and it comes down to the letter of the law and a judge who must adjudicate this law, it's very unfair to the man. These child custody laws that are etched in stone and have been around, I'm going to tell you when they were all written and when they all became precedent. There were no real divorce or custody laws until the 1960s, because you didn't need them. There weren't a whole lot of divorces. It wasn't a thing. People didn't get divorced. There were divorces and there were situations, but they were very small. The divorce suddenly went boom in like the 1960s and the 1970s. So all of these rules had to be written. So all these now wait a second, this is happening more. We actually should drill down on this subject and try and figure out a way to make justice applicable to this situation, which is a very emotional and a very dangerous situation for the people involved, because again, they're probably in a more emotional situation. So all of these laws were written by brilliant legal scholars back at the time when divorce started to become a big thing. You remember back when women didn't go to work, back when women stayed in the home and needed to be provided, back when women were just, perfect. And men, well, they were playing crab ass with the secretary and were drunk on 3 scotches before 11 a.m. every day. That's how these laws were written. But the world has changed. Women are essentially, look, I don't want to get into it, the progress of women debate, but come on, it ain't the same thing. It is no longer the same thing. The laws that seemed reasonable in the male-female divorcing dynamic of 1965 are no longer reasonable to a father who maybe what, people get divorced for all kinds of reasons. Anyway, I want to move. This is a terrible story. The killer of this judge is on the run. That's what I was just distracted by. There's a manhunt for him, so that story is developing. ... But these are awful stories. And look, I don't know. I don't want to get too deep into it. I hope that didn't come off as an anti-woman or anti-mother stance, because anyone who knows me knows that I am not anti-mother. And I'm neither anti my mother or anti my son's mother. I am a huge fan of both. Both of them have mom skills. So, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying the laws need to be updated. We need to have real conversations about what does shared custody look like in 2023? Now, let's not frame it through a lens of 1963. It's different. Life is different. The world is different. Women didn't work. So, men, no matter what, you've got to give them 50% of your paycheck. These kinds of things, right? And by the way, that's not a real number. I just threw it out. But there are mandatory, certain places around this country, they have mandatory simply because, well, of course the man must do that because a woman isn't capable of holding a job. That was the attitude when the laws were written. So now in 2023, when a judge sees it, a judge has to adjudicate according to the law. So we need to change the laws. We need to have real conversations about custody. We need to change the perception that women are completely the victim in every divorce. If there's a child involved, the poor woman. It's always, and that's not always the case. And we all know that. All right, moving on. I mean, it's still mostly the guy's fault, probably. Guess it, but I'm just saying. Let's see here. Oh, we got another judge. This one is up in Oklahoma. Did you see this story here? I don't want to show it to you, but there's a video out there if you want to see it. It's kind of boring, but it is, oh God. So there's a judge in Oklahoma. She's a brand new judge. She's only been a judge since like January. And she's getting kicked out. She's getting kicked out of being a judge. You can't be a judge anymore. You're not good at it. That's what's happening with her. Why? Because her courtroom has cameras in it. Not cameras like, we're going to put this on court TV, but security cameras in case something crazy goes. A closed circuit, that kind of thing. And somebody, a lawyer or whatever, was complaining about her, saying that she was doing this, doing that. And, then an investigation was brought about, and they got these tapes, and they looked at these tapes. And of course, it's a closed circuit tape. It's like a security camera. It's not, the judge probably isn't even considering that there's a camera in there. She doesn't know what's happening. She just knows that she's the judge. It's her courtroom. She can do whatever she wants. And they released this recording from like hours, like it's like a 3-hour recording of this judge in her courtroom listening to these cases. People coming forward, people are testifying. And again, remember, she's not going to be allowed to be a judge anymore. Dude, she sat there the whole time. You can watch the video. She sits there the whole time on her phone, on Instagram, just scrolling. And then they found out that when she wasn't on Instagram, she was sending texts to her bailiff. Like her bailiff was right there. They're like making fun of the prosecutors and they're making fun of the victims. They're just going back and forth. She can't be a judge anymore. See, that's not a serious person. Judges are supposed to suck. Judges are supposed to be like really boring, really stoic, really serious. You don't want to party with a judge. You don't even want to be around a judge. This woman sounds like she might be kind of fun. Can't be a judge. Nobody who understands fun should, be in charge of big decisions, big important decisions. Here's one. This is an interesting story. We talked about this in New York City. This happened in New York City. Philly's going to start opening up drug centers. Drug centers. What's a drug center? You mean like a CVS? No. Drug centers. These are going to be centers. There's going to be big giant rooms with mats where junkies can go and fix up, so they're not fixing up on street corners. Is this a problem? I would, there was probably a time in my life, not so distantly, where I would go, this is not a problem. It's a problem. Over the course of the last 2 years, I can count, just off the top of my head, 2. I remember 2. And then how many times, are you guys noticing this out in public? People who are fucked up. You see them a lot in front of 7-Elevens. You see him a lot, like sitting on street corners next to laundromats or whatever. I saw one guy in a car. It looked like he was sleeping, but as I walked by, I was like, is this guy okay? Because he was obviously, what is that even called? The opioid thing where he's like, my son and I, there's a third one. Here's a third one. My son and I forgot about this. I think I've told this story before. My son and I were at a convenience store in Chicago, in his grandmother's neighborhood. And we get into the car. Probably bought a Slurpee or something. We get in the car and we close it and we look. And, when you park at a 7-Eleven, there's a garbage can right next to the entrance, We look and there's a dude leaning against the garbage can. And we're sitting there, we're looking at him. And my kid Mace goes, look at him. Is he sick? And he was obviously a junkie. And he could barely stand. And he was rocking back and forth. And holy shit. So that is a problem. However, let's ask this question. Let's get into some real fun moral sort of depths here. That's a problem. What is the problem there? Is the problem there that so many Americans are dependent on this and that they're dying and that's sad and we can't have this kind of a toll of human life? Is that the problem? Or is the problem, there's a gross guy in front of 7-Eleven? Which problem is it? It can be both. It can be partly both, but what is it mostly for you? If for you, it's mostly, gross guy, which it is for me in part. If you're the, it's the gross people, I'm tired of seeing these gross people on the street, then you should be applauding. these freaking drug centers, because that's the problem these drug centers address. These drug centers do not address the problem or attempt to get them any help. These drug centers address the problem of blight. And is that perfect? No. But what did I say before about choosing which world you live in? We don't live in a perfect world. We live in the real world. We live in the actual world. And is not having junkies falling over garbage cans in front of 7-Eleven better than having them do it? I think it is. I think it's better that they're not there. Open up a warehouse. Throw them in there. Oh, but now we got, well, who's going to pay for it? Well, taxes. Taxes. I would love it if corporate America or maybe pharmaceutical companies, or maybe there could be some judgments where these, the Sackler family or Pfizer or whoever the hell's involved in all this stuff. I would love it if there were some class action judgments that could fund this thing, but probably not. It would probably be taxpayer dollars. Again, now I ask you, is that taxpayer dollars well spent? Well, how important is it to you to not have to step over junkies on your street corner? If it's important to you, then that's money well spent. I guess my point is this, that we all clutch our pearls and we all talk about, the opioid crisis. But really, that's not what bothers us. We don't care unless it's affected us, unless our own kid ends up dead. That's how we live. That's how we exist. It's how most humans go through the world. The gun violence isn't a problem until your daughter's dead. Then you're on CNN going, I used to say that I'll never take my gun, but now that's how we react. Nothing is real until it affects us. If it happens to other people, it's tragic and we clutch pearls, but we move on fairly quickly. That's how we feel about the opioid thing. People are like, it's a terrible thing. Blight, or do you want to help people? You can do both. One is easier to do, and it looks like Philly's doing it. So, yeah. So based on that criteria, I'm all for these things. Get them off the streets. You know what else I'm for? I'm for letting all the homeless people just, live in a warehouse in tents. Let's do that. Let's just clean up the streets. Let's just make these cities that our taxpayer dollars already pay for. And by the way, based on the view of the homeless people that stretch just south of Dallas, you ever seen that? Over 30, you know where the 30 bridge is? Over there by, what would that be, the convention center? Holy crap. Have you seen that District 9? Okay, let's eliminate that. And let's make a city where people who are actually, living in the city and working in the city can enjoy. Now, I'm not saying build gas chambers. I'm not a monster. Are you kidding me? I'm talking about some kind of an effort by the government to make our cities more livable, while at the same time possibly giving these people a place to shelter or whatever it is. Does that fix the problem of homelessness? Because the real problem is, why are these people homeless? Well, just because that loses. No, stop it. There's a big mental health problem. The majority of people who are out on the streets, so that's another problem we've got to address. But those are more complicated problems. This is also like what I say about Israel and Hamas. We're not reacting to the historical problems. We're reacting to the problem right now. So opioid, what is the problem right in front of us? The problem is stepping over a junkie. Let's fix that problem and then move on to the next one. That problem can be fixed by taking that junkie and just putting him somewhere away from my path. Same thing with homeless people. What's the real problem with homeless people? Well, the real problem with homeless people is that we in this country have to have a real serious and dedicated conversation and then a solution finding effort on mental illness and mental health. That's the big existential issue. Real problem with homeless is that they're ruining our cities. And people with big hearts, people who probably do have compassion for homeless people, are just grossed out and angry every time they try and find a parking spot at their job where they have to step over, again, homeless people and junkies. So let's address that problem. Let's make our cities more livable. And you know what? God damn it, even if that's all we do, because my hope would be that we would then take the next step and address the larger problems. We probably won't do that. We're not good at that as a people. It would be my hope that we would. We probably won't. And then guess what? As I said with the Israeli-Hamas thing, there's going to be a humanitarian disaster over there. That's going to be terrible. But it's probably going to be a humanitarian disaster anyway, and there's humanitarian disasters, and very rare is it that at the end of a humanitarian disaster in this world, we can say, well, at least there's no Hamas. So that's what that is. Make your choices. Man, I am ranting and running out of time. It's 1:30. Holy crap. Jon Stewart is gone from Apple TV. Jon Stewart is no longer. The problem with Jon Stewart was a show that was on Apple TV. Jon Stewart hosted it. It's 2 seasons long. Third season, staff was told yesterday there will not be a third season. It's not going to happen. The trouble with Jon Stewart was the show that was on Apple TV. I love Jon Stewart's mind. I love him. I love him as a debater. I love how smart and how witty he is. And boy, talk about a guy who can message. He is a real effective tool in messaging. Smart. Seems to be a good person. Like, seems that most of his motivations are selfless. The charity stuff that he does. But I just said that, and I totally forgot about all the 9/11 stuff that he does for the people who are suffering from, issues from all the toxins. I mean, the tireless work that he's been doing on that for 20 years. He's a good person. I think he's an awesome dude. Politically, whatever. I don't get into that stuff, so I don't give a shit about how he votes. But he seems like a good person. So the Apple TV show is gone. Why? Because Jon Stewart was planning on doing a big expose on China and American companies' involvement with the Chinese government, and Apple TV said, nope. And he said, yep. And they said, no. And so he's gone. So that's the story. The story is the Apple, of course, Apple will say, well, we decided to get rid of it because nobody was watching it and blah, blah, blah. And, he just doesn't have it anymore. Meanwhile, Jon Stewart's going to be over there going, yeah, they didn't like what I uncovered about China. They didn't like the ties between my investigation into China and where them Apple iPhones and all that other good Apple stuff is made. So that's the reason he's gone. Let's not kid ourselves. That story's fairly clear. But let me just say something about Apple TV, because I like Jon Stewart, and I probably would have watched this, and I have access to Apple TV. It's a cagey way of saying it, isn't it? I have access to Apple TV. I never watched it. You know why? Because Apple TV sucks, man. Apple TV is like, it's got a real PBS vibe. And by that, I don't mean that it's, like public broadcast. What I mean is a PBS vibe is this. When there were only 4 or 5 channels to choose from, PBS was always one of them. But you never went there because you knew what it was. There was just a vibe about it, that it was just going to be pretentious and elitist. And, you can watch upstairs, downstairs on PBS. No, thank you. You know what I mean? It was that. That's what I mean when I say a PBS vibe. Every time I'm going around to my main platforms, my main apps, your Netflix, your Prime, your Hulu, your Max, yes, your Apple. Every time I'm going around those, I treat Apple like it's the PBS. Like, I know that, all right, I'll check it out. I'll see what's there. I know that it's probably going to be trash. It's probably going to be something so pretentious, so aspirational. That's all Apple is. Apple is so preachy. Apple is so condescending to, we're the elite people. Well, Apple, we only do classy shows. Yeah, your shows are boring, man. I'm sorry. Anyway, so Jon Stewart being gone from Apple, I think is great. Now, here's my prediction. I think Jon Stewart wants back in the fight. Jon Stewart obviously wants to do stuff, because Jon Stewart did this deal with Apple after retiring from The Daily Show. Now, what are the options for Jon Stewart if, as I believe, he wants to continue in this fight? Well, first and foremost, if I'm the new guy at CNN, I am talking about finally being able to fill the gaping hole that Larry King left when Larry King retired at 8 o'clock. You want to replicate that kind of, Jon Stewart can do that. Now, the problem for CNN is there might be some perceptions about partisan leanings and all that stuff, but shut up, you're CNN, don't worry about it. And if that truly is the problem that causes those idiots who can't seem to stop tripping over their own dicks at CNN, if there is something that stops them from pulling the trigger on filling that vacant Larry King hole, what are you talking about, Pugs? It's now, I don't even know who's there. It's now Caitlin Collins. Yeah, right. Yeah. Caitlin Collins, sure. CNN will drop Jon Stewart in there and increase revenue by 10,000%, like overnight. Anyway. So you got Jon Stewart. So you can do that. If CNN is like, nah, we don't want it. MSNBC. MSNBC should jump on him. MSNBC should put him there. And I don't even know if he wants to do it. He may end up over on HBO. He might be doing like, you got Bill Maher on Friday. You got John Oliver on Sunday. HBO might be thinking, hey, a 10 p.m. show that fits in that on Saturday might work. Why not a Jon Stewart Saturday evening show live on HBO? I don't know. There you have it. Anyway, that's the reason that he's gone. Apparently, there's an issue about some story that he was doing on China, and Apple TV didn't like it. So Jon Stewart no longer works at Apple TV. What else do we have here? All right, so I got to get out of here. So we're going to end this show right here. We're going to end it fairly quickly. Tom says Shrinking is a great Apple TV show. Yeah, he's right. Look, there's obviously exceptions that prove the rule. There are a couple of things. Ted Lasso's an Apple show. I absolutely love Ted Lasso. What is the one For All Mankind? For All Mankind is a really cool space show that I enjoy. I used to enjoy the morning show, like season 1 and then half of season 2. And by the time I got to half of season 2 of the morning show, I was like, oh, this is just dumb. So I got off of that. And Shrinking is fantastic. Yeah, I highly recommend. But those are 3. For the most part, though, whenever I go to Apple TV and I click on it and I'm like, what's new? There's never anything I want to see. It's always like one Somalian mother's struggle against an imperial force. It's always like, no, don't want that. The hottest new sitcom from South Korea. No. By the way, that's another thing that's bothering me about Netflix. Does this bother you about Netflix? And it shouldn't. And it's very provincial. And I recognize this. But do you get mad when you see something you think you might be interested on Netflix and then realize that it's from like Portugal? You're like, no, that looked like an interesting new series. I don't want to have to read a Portuguese TV series. I hate that. And Netflix does it. And they don't tell you where it's from. You have to watch the little trailer for a second to notice that the lines don't match up with the lips to go, geez, this is bad dubbed foreign TV. I don't watch any of that shit, and I should. Like, there's a show, Berlin Station. Everybody's like, Berlin Station's great, but I think it's a German show or something. Is it Berlin Station? Wait, what's the reason I don't watch Berlin Station? I don't know. Anyway, Netflix does that. They don't tell you. That it's like from somewhere else until you start watching it and you're like, meh. You start seeing convenience stores that you've never seen before. What's a super gaga gulp? Okay, so there you go. I don't know what's new on TV this weekend, so I have no tips for you. Here's what's on TV today, though. We got a Ranger game tonight. I'm going to leave you with this. Rangers have lost 2 straight. Ooh, getting scary, isn't it? Oh, we were up 2-0 against the Houston Astros. We hate the Astros. Well, we hate Houston, but we hate the Astros specifically. The Astros are from San Diego. We'd hate them just as passionately. So it hurts. Go up 2-0, feeling good, weren't we? Enjoying it. Calling it magic, I was. Still am. We lose 2 in a row. Now it's even. How's your butthole feel? Right? Isn't this what sports is? This is why we do it. What we are going through today. I know. We watch like, why does it have to be this way? Because this is the magic of sports. So it's 2-2. There's 3 games left. It's a best of 3 series. We got 1 game in Arlington, and then we got 2 down there in Houston. We got Monty going this afternoon. Looking good. Be throwing little southpaw rice pellets. We've got a very rested bullpen. Look, now I'm talking to some baseball guys, but if you believe that Monty can give you 6 2/3, I mean, if you get 6 2/3 out of him, and then you turn it over to, Chapman or Clark, whatever, the bullpen is rested. Don't fear. Hope. Keep hope alive. This is not hard. This is a best of 3 series. We go up today. We win today because we're going to win today. Because again, Monty, rested bullpen. Our boys are going to break out. Don't you worry about Seager. Don't you worry about Simeon. Don't you worry. They're going to be fine. Okay? This is the magic of being a sports fan. These moments, these painful moments. Bunch of people, which I think makes you small, but I understand it because we're all small in our own ways. But a bunch of people decided last night that they were going to grave dance. Like, they're like, what happened to your magic now? And by the way, I'm not talking about April. April sent me something on I'm not April. This is not you. Oh, I'm sorry you don't understand magic. Hell, I don't understand magic. I don't even know if magic is real. But am I still a believer in the magic? Absolutely. Absolutely. We're going to win. We're going to win. We're going to win 2 of 3. Here's how we're going to do it. It's going to go to a 7th game. Nah, you know what? I don't want to do this. I don't want to get into predictions because the predictions are stupid. And when you make predictions, you are being disrespectful to the will of the Magic. Magic makes all the decisions in this. So me thinking it's going to be a 7th game, I don't know. All I know is that the Rangers are going to win. That's all I know for sure. Now, let's break from reality for just one moment, okay? The reality is that I've gone on record now making that statement. Is it possible I'm wrong and that the Rangers lose? Goddamn right there is. Damn right there is. And there's a possibility that we're all going to be crushed. So I ask you now in this moment when it's a best of 3 series, why are you leaning into we're going to get crushed and going to get our heart broken? See, again, these are choices. These are emotional choices. These are mental choices that we make. How about just go with, this is great, we're awesome, we're going to win, I can't believe this is so unexpected. Just go with this. What is the cost on you if you're wrong? See, this is what I don't get. People are like, aren't you, wow, you're really going out on a limb. Yeah, and if I'm wrong, what do I care? This is a fucking baseball game, you idiot. This is just a game. And the game isn't important. The magic of community, the magic of watching this all together and being excited about the very same thing at the very same moment, miles apart from one another. That's the magic of it. Doesn't matter if they lose. So they lose and they go home. We're going to be upset for 12 hours. We're going to be upset for just as long as we are after we see a mall shooting. That's it. And then we're going to move on. We're going to forget about it. And we'll get caught up in it again in another 9 months or 10 months. But the point is this. The magic is happening now. The magic is happening. The fun that we're having, that it's being extended. This is the magic. So, man, hold on to it. Tonight, what is it? It's a 4. Is it a 4 o'clock, 7 o'clock? What is it, 4 o'clock tonight? What is, oh, shit. Hold on. What time start? Help me, chat. You know what? I don't need to wait the 15 seconds. Is it a 4 o'clock start or is this a 7 o'clock start? Let me see. Rangers game. Can't believe it. Oh, it's 4 o'clock. Okay.
The Rangers will play the Astros today at 4:07 p.m.
There we go. I got nothing else to say other than this is why we do sport. Okay? Because our lives suck and life is hard and people are mean and dreams don't come true and we twist our ankles and sometimes, we bite into our hamburger from the McDonald's and it's cold and we're mad. Our kid isn't exactly what we wanted our kid to be, but you know what we have? We have sport to sort of just distract us just momentarily, just to deliver these moments like that we're all going to have tonight around, I don't know, 4 o'clock, 4:07, I think it says here. Oh, that feeling, right? You're all like me. Butterflies in the stomach and then the torture of commercial breaks and oh God, well, it's fun. It's fun. And that's why we do it. And don't hate it. And don't choose to be a pessimist. These moments of fun are so rare. Your team's going to fucking lose. Your team's going to break your heart 99% of the time. This is why I always say, and I make this a big point. My son, I always say it to my son. I hope that you are blessed with this. I was about 38, I think it was 38. The White Sox were the last ones. No, they were not. I was probably older than that. I was probably 40. The Blackhawks would have been the last one. In my lifetime, I have been able to see every one of my teams that I root for, even at the college level. I have been able to see every one of my teams at least win one championship. And that's a good thing. I can call it a sporting life. I am not going to be one of these dead old guys who it's like, oh, he never got to see his White Sox win a World Series. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. 2005. I got to see that one. I'm lousy with Bulls championships. I'm lousy with Blackhawks championships. You can't ever take 1985 and my Chicago Bears away from me. And these are some of the most defining moments of my life, the most important, the most precious. That's what sport does. So enjoy the Rangers. Don't be a dick about it. If they lose, you have a right to feel upset. Like I said, it's going to suck. But you're not going to carry it with you forever. This team lost 2 consecutive World Series. Two consecutive ones. One year after the other. We were all there for the second year. No matter how hard our hearts got kicked in the heart nuts after the first one, we all came back for the second one. And we're all back for this one. Let's keep it that way. All right, go Rangers. Have a great weekend. I've got my kids, so I'm going to have fun. It's going to be beautiful. I love you all. Any big breaking news, you know that I'll jump in with some kind of a stream. I got nothing else. Oh, other than tip the show if you're so inclined. Check out Kelly's Practical Picks. Oh, you know what? Yeah, I wanted to mention that somebody said something to me about the Pugs and Kelly Practical Picks thing, which I really appreciated. And I thought, oh man, okay, so that's good. A friend of mine who isn't familiar with the Pugs and Kelly show, doesn't know the Pugs and Kelly show. She's from Chicago, but she follows, she pops into the chat room every now and again. So she had no real familiarity with me working with my former partner, Kelly. So she just started listening to the Practical Picks shows, and she's not a football person. She doesn't like football. She doesn't understand football. It's, I mean, she's okay. Let's go to the bar and watch the game. But, she's not into it. She doesn't follow it. She doesn't know what these picks are. She would never bet on football. So why is she listening to a pick show? And you know what she said to me? She goes, I love that show. It's not about football at all. And I'm like, I know it's not. It's about silliness. It's not about, we're not breaking down plays. It's about whether or not, a Jaguar could defeat a lion and more. And then we break those down. Like we talk about the lions and what do they do and what do Jaguars do. And she appreciated that. And I just thought that was great. And I wanted to mention that because I sometimes think that maybe some people don't want, it's just Pugs and Kelly. It's just her and I just riffing on stupid stuff. We slide current events in, and it's a good show. It's a good show. Kelly and I are doing stuff. Look out. There's going to be more to come. I'm really enjoying working with her again. I got to be honest with you. And she ain't listening to this. She doesn't listen to this show. She could give a shit about me. But I was worried because, Kelly had herself a brain thing. Kelly had herself kind of an incident a few years ago. And I was worried. I'm like, man, is she? Because, the only reason I like Kelly is because she had wit. No, one of the, things that I appreciated most about her was her quick wit. And it's still there. So I've now determined, all right, we'll move forward. She's just got semi-brain scrambles. It's just making her more fun. So, and it's making her more fun. I think. I don't know. It could be tragic, but she's such a cool person that she rolled with it. Like there's only been one incident where I've been like, oh, is that because of the brain thing? There's only been one incident and she mispronounced a word incorrectly. And then she tried to say it again and she mispronounced it wrongly again. And she didn't realize she was mispronouncing it wrong. And I go, is that because of the brain? And she's like, yeah, probably. And I'm like, awesome. This will be fun. If you're just randomly not going to be able to say words correctly, we can work with that. I mean, just as long as there's not going to be a point where the eyes roll back in the head and she starts to swallow her tongue, right? That's what we don't want. But, a malaprop every now and again, hysterical. All right, bye, everybody. Go Rangers! Love y'all. Bye.
I don't need no 401. I don't have the greed. Down the road I'll travel, far from the comfort nest. I am on a never-ending quest. Tomorrow is another day. The best is yet to come. I have found a different way, so baffling to some. I can smile a little now, things are going good. I always had to be on guard, that is understood. Down the road I'll travel, far from the comfort nest. I am on a never-ending quest. I am on a never-ending quest.